one strand of floss or two strands of floss. Doesn't matter when you are stitching on 18 count or 16 count fabric. What about the tension of your stitches? How does that influence the way your stitches appear on your fabric? I've also received feedback about how my stitches are laying on fabric as well. These are just some of the things that I have received feedback for regarding two pieces that I entered into the Canberra Royal Show. And if you're keen on finding out some more information about how this could hopefully help your stitching as well, stick around. Hi everyone, I'm Kristen, the Cross Stitching Runner, and welcome to my channel. I want to say a big hello and welcome to all new and returning viewers, and if by chance you've stumbled across this channel is all about cross stitch with a bit of life stuff thrown in. And today is Saturday the 8th of March, and it has been what feels like 2 weeks since we last caught up, but it's also, I think, roughly 2 weeks since I submitted two pieces into the Canberra Royal Show for 2025, and it was the first time that I've ever entered any cross-stitch pieces into the needlework section of the show, and I received some really great feedback from the judges, and that's a bit of what I was alluding to at the start of this catch up. And it is something that I am excited to try and embrace and incorporate into my stitching, and hopefully part of what I've learned may help you guys out as well with your stitching, or something to consider if you're perhaps embarking on a stitching piece that you may enter into a show as well, and who knows. So first off, I entered in a piece called Dewdrop Daisy, and it is a hot cross stitching design. It is a piece that I'd worked on for many years. I think my partner and I, we estimated it being maybe 4 years off and on stitching, and I'd stitched it on 28 count linen and stitched it 2/2. The interesting bit of feedback that I received for Dewdrop Daisy is the the tension. So I am a habitual hoop stitcher. It's something that I have grown accustomed to because I enjoy holding on to the hoop while I'm stitching, and I am a one-handed stitcher, so my right hand is routinely going front to back to pull the needle through the fabric, and at times that has come to be not a good thing because the the fabric, when I have it in the hoop, has become a bit too tight, and that has found the stitches are probably a little bit too tight, but that's also a little bit of my style of stitching as well, and I might be pulling too hard on the needle and thread to make the crosses. So this is where it's got me thinking about my style of stitching and perhaps changing it up a little bit. And to put things into perspective, I have a sample here, and it's also part of a new start. So what I can show you here is the orange stitches that we see on camera here. They are stitches that I've done in hand. They are 2/2. This is on 28 count linen. And then the darker stitches that we see, I've stitched them using a hoop, and I have tried to have the tension of the fabric fairly tight in the hoop, and this is where we are starting to see the fabric showing through the stitches. And this was something that the judges had picked up on for Dewdrop Daisy, and this is where I'm starting to reconsider the possibility of stitching in hand instead. But then what I'm also curious about and what I need to play around with is the bulkiness of my stitches. So with the stitches for the orange colored threads, they are perhaps looking bulky. And one of the things that the judges had suggested for a different piece, which was the Four Seasons Dragons, I had stitched that on 18 count Ada, and they had suggested that for that size count of fabric that I could perhaps consider stitching the crosses with one strand of floss instead as a way of getting those stitches to sit flatter. I'm feeling conflicted with that, and I'm really keen to hear your opinions and your experiences as well with this. For a full coverage piece, it's important to me to have full coverage with my stitches and that no fabric shows through. And that was something that the judges may have picked up on a little bit for Dewdrop Daisy. And it's something that, pardon me, that I am trying to work on for this new piece here. So what I'm curious about, and this is something I need to play with too, would I perhaps need to consider using one strand of floss over two for this piece to make the stitches less bulky? Because as much as an iron can help to flatten out a piece, it may not be enough from a judge's perspective. So that's what's got me wondering a little bit about my style of stitching and considering how I stitch in hand and whether stitching in hand is worth it or if I perhaps need to consider getting a special lap stand kind of frame, or perhaps I need to sit at a table or sit at a desk rather, or table that has a clamp and then have the frame of the hoop and then try stitching two-handed. The other thing that I can also consider is I have an over the top light, an OTT light that actually shines over, and it's also on a stand that has a clamp that can hold on to the hoop in the piece that I'm working on, and that's where I could perhaps try the two-handed stitching. But again, it's the fact that it's in a hoop and that I would need to be careful with how tight or how tense the fabric is and all the flow on effect from that. So that was just those are just some of the things that the judges gave some fantastic feedback on with regards to my stitching. And it's certainly something that I've started playing around for one of my pieces that I will talk more about later on. The other feedback that I received from the judges with Dewdrop Daisy was regarding the framing. This was something that I had been feeling just a bit uncomfortable about, knowing that I could potentially get pinged for it because it, as proud as I am for the judging and well, as proud as I am rather of the framing job that I did, I do need to be careful about fabric allowance for the framing component. That was a muck up on my part. If you've been around for a while, you will have heard the story and seen how much fabric or how little fabric I did have left over at the bottom of Dewdrop Daisy. There wasn't much at all. It might have been maybe 1 centimetre of fabric, if that, at the bottom of the piece. And that was then a challenge for the lacing and the framing component. And the judges picked up on that and they gave some really good suggestions that next time for the framing, I need to make sure that the mat board is right up against the stitching and that no fabric is visible there. So that I definitely acknowledge and go, yep, okay, something I need to do for future framing. Speaking of framing, I have a finish to share with you. Since we last caught up, I have spent an estimated 10 days or so working on this piece that I've just finished, and noting that when I say roughly 10 days, it might be a couple of hours here, a couple of hours there, and equating to say maybe a couple of hundred stitches here, a few hundred there, or maybe within the realms of tens of stitches, so 70 odd stitches here, 40 odd stitches here, that kind of thing. And the piece that I finished is called I Can and I Will. If by chance you have been following me recently with this piece, I'll bore you a little bit with it. But if you haven't seen this piece before, I designed this piece as part of a series that I'm creating regarding running motivation and something along those sort of lines. Now, I haven't been able to run consistently for a while now because of injuries that I'm slowly trying to overcome and recover from. And when I was running regularly, there were times when I would struggle with motivation where I would get partway through a run and my legs would be feeling tired, or I'd be struggling with a component of the session that I was doing. And having some mantras like I can and I will help me at least to fire up a bit and go, come on, let's get this done, let's do this. So having this piece, I think, helps a lot, just as that reminder, not just from a writing component, but I think other for other aspects of my life as well, that I'll be able to have this hanging up somewhere framed and reminding myself that even if it's not to do with running, that with other parts of my life that I might be struggling with, having that positive phrasing or positive mantra to say, come on, I can do this and I will get through this, will hopefully help me out when the headspace isn't feeling all that great. Now, considering I have finished a piece, at least in my logic in the world of cross stitch, that means that I can at least start one new project. I've started two. One of which is a piece that I've actually shown you a little bit already in this episode, and I have nicknamed it Autumn Leaves, but its official title is Autumn Ivy on the Wall. I've had this particular chart in my stash for a few years now, and I've kept putting it off. I've had used excuses really for why I can't start it, because I've got too many projects on, or I've forgotten about it, or I don't have the fabric for it, anything in between. That said, I have made this particular start, and as I've said earlier in this particular episode, I'm going to play around a bit more with my stitching and see how I can get the stitches to lay flat, but also get the coverage that I want for the piece, and hopefully have it finished in enough time for next year and submit it for the Canberra Royal Show. And initially, I had the thoughts or plans to submit a black and white rolled up daisy, which we'll get to have a look at quite soon. I have come to analyze my stitches and see how I've been doing the stitching and such, especially after the feedback that I received from the judges at the show. And I'm thinking that that piece may not be as suitable, or I'll have to at least relook at my stitches and see which ones I can try and neaten up and improve on. Anyway, I am looking forward to making progress on Autumn Leaves, also known as Autumn Ivy on the Wall. Now, I did mention that I made two starts. The next start that I have to share with you is a very simple start, and it is being stitched 1/1 on 28 count linen. This is a very simple start that I've made. And to help put into context of what on earth that is meant to be, I'll just grab the cover page for you all. So, what stories are you telling yourself? This is a chart that has been inspired by a few different areas of life, and it is a piece that I am needing to work on and have in my life, especially finished hanging up somewhere and see it on a regular basis, because I get stuck in my head way too often. I mull over things more for longer than I should, or more often than I should, and it not only causes myself grief, but if I'm venting to anyone close in my life, it ends up giving them grief as well, because some of the things that I'm mulling over are silly, trivial things that shouldn't be causing me the grief that it does. So the idea is I can acknowledge the initial thoughts and the uncomfortable feelings and uncomfortable story that I'm experiencing at that time. And once I'll try to allow myself to feel those feelings and feel the story and such. I then need to try and take a step back and reevaluate the situation and try and change the story a little bit and try and see it from another perspective, because the line of thinking is by changing the narrative, the story changes. And it's still similar to the other sayings and other lines of thinking of there's two sides to every story, or I've even heard there's three sides of the story to every story. There's uh, his side, her side, and the truth, or any other phrasings that you're wanting to incorporate with that. Oh, the other phrasing of putting yourself in another person's shoes to try and see their perspective and at least try to empathize with what's going on, and trying to perhaps be a little bit kinder to those situations, or in other cases, being kind to yourself and uh, acknowledge that you might have made a mistake or caused some uncomfortable situations, and being able to bounce back from those situations and realizing that, yep, okay, it was a crap situation and it wasn't maybe the best way to handle the situation or respond to it, or anything to that effect. And by then changing the perspective and going, okay, these are the lessons that I can learn from that situation, and how can I ensure that I don't make that same mistake again. There's a lot going on behind this particular chart. So that is something that I'm trying to incorporate or instill within the piece that I'm stitching, and noting that I probably haven't gotten many stitches done on it, but it is enough to consider it to be a start. It is using all DMC threads, and when I had initially chosen this fabric, I had made sure that I was lining it up, measuring up, and pardon me, making sure that I had enough fabric around the edges as well, so I would be able to eventually frame it up or have enough fabric around the edges to do whatever else I wanted to do with the piece. Now, again, thinking of framing, thinking about stitching, and the feedback that I've gotten from the Canberra Royal Show judges, I do have some haul and I'm feeling excited about it, and I'm also looking forward to receiving the last little bit for this particular project. So, the first part of it is the chart that I've purchased from Lakeside Needlecraft called Under the Sea, and it's been exclusively designed by Durene Jones. For some people, this may look familiar, and appreciating that this is a grayscale copy of the cover page, but I know that I've seen some people in the cross stitch community, or at least on Flosstube, who have stitched this chart or something very similar to it. And what I'm really excited about is I've purchased some hand dyed fabric from Paddock Lane Designs, and it's an opalescent fabric. And I am very much looking forward to working on the opalescent fabric for this particular chart and just seeing it come to life. And when I had picked up my two pieces from Canberra, I guess nearly 2 weeks ago, being aware of what the theme was for next year, I immediately thought of this chart and was thinking of some similar charts just in case I wasn't able to get my hands on that particular chart. And one of the other ones that came to mind is this Biscornu by Tiny Modernist. And I'm feeling comfortable with Biscornus because of the back stitch or the some of the other stitches that go with it. And I am choosing to change my opinion and changing my mind with this, similar to what I was saying before, in the sense that the under the sea chart has backstitch in it as well. That is something I'm needing to get comfortable with again and appreciate that it is a necessary requirement for these particular pieces, because it is going to give that beautiful detail to both charts, to both pieces, and make them stand out and be absolutely amazing. And the other thought that had crossed my mind is with this particular piece, yes, the model has been stitched on 28 count even weave of white fabric. However, I'm considering checking out my stash of fabric and seeing if there are any complementary colors or complementary fabrics that I have that this could be stitched on. And I don't know, I might enter it into the show as well if the rules and regulations and such allow it to. Or if I do submit it, it might actually end up going into the general section rather than maybe the specific theme for next year. Plans, thoughts, ideas, who knows, it might completely change by the time I can submit and register pieces and all the jazz that goes with it. Now, I also purchased some threads from the Mittagong cross stitch store, or not necessarily cross stitch store, it's a needlecraft store. So it's the Victoria House Needlecraft store, and I was getting super impatient for a parcel that was going to come in the mail for me, and I ended up purchasing some cottage garden threads for another piece that I am super keen to make a start on. And who knows when I actually end up getting around to stitching it. I'll eventually get there though. So these are the cottage garden threads that I have purchased, partly because some of these I couldn't quite remember which ones I had ordered online, but they're going along the lines of the theme that I had or have with the design that I have in mind, and some of those colours may not quite fit within the pattern of what I'm wanting to do, but it's the fact that I now have them in my stash and I then now need to pull my finger out, so to speak, and just get stitching. Stop talking, stop rambling, and just getting on to it. With all that said and done, my cottage garden threads did arrive in the mail, and I love their packaging. This came in with the packaging, and what I love is how nice and neat it sits in the box. So some of the colours are near identical to what I've purchased. So the first few that I have purchased, these three, and these, and last three are here. Now, I'm not going to be able to share with you what the actual pattern is, but when I do start on the piece, I'll be able to start sharing with you my progress on it, story behind it, and everything that encompasses it. I just can't share. Anyway, let's get on to some more progress. Now, the next piece that I have to share with you is called the Grinch Santa Claus, and I'm stitching this for a friend, and this is where I'm at so far. When I was doing the stats for this particular episode, I think I must have doubled up somewhere, or I've not counted properly. Initially, I was calculating like 16 or 17 days being spent on this, but considering I'm trying to film every couple of weeks or so, that didn't make sense in terms of my timing. Anyway, I've spent quite a few days on this. The annoying component is that I'm going to need to figure out where I've gone wrong, because I'm at a point where I've mucked up a little bit with my stitching, with my counting, and the slight benefit of this being a full coverage piece is that I can fudge it a little bit. I'll figure it out. It's okay. The cool thing is that this chart was purchased from an Etsy store called Tom's Stitches. The details will be in the description box below, and I'm really enjoying how this is coming along. Now, the next lot of stitching that I have to share with you, I have stashed on the floor, so I'll get things organised and be back very soon. The last piece that I have to share with you is some work that I've done on Winter in Stars Hollow. This was a piece that I was talking about for my birthday, where having the day off on my birthday, I wanted to sit down in front of the TV, have Gilmore Girls going, and having my Gilmore Girls mug with me, and having fun stitching and eating junk food and all the rest. I was able to do parts of that. Part of that was working on Winter in Stars Hollow. This is where I'm at so far, and I have mostly finished the second story of Lorelei's house, and I've started on, a bit of the roof and awning for the ground floor. I am stitching this 2/2 on 28 count linen. No, not linen, I apologize, even weave. I'm questioning if the fabric count is right. I think I'm right, it's all good. I'm using all of the called for colors with this, and I'm having a lot of fun. I feel like I need to put some more time into this, because I want to see more progress. But it was just one day so far that I've put into this, and it'll be okay. It'll be worth it. I think that is pretty well it for this particular episode. I know my energy has been going down quite rapidly since the start of this particular episode. So if you've made it this far, I just want to say thank you so much. Thank you for making it to the end of the episode. And if by chance you have made it to the end of the episode, if you could please comment with a love heart emoji, just to show that you have made it to the end of the episode. And I just want to say thank you again for spending some time with me. And until next time, I look forward to catching up with you, sharing progress, and I hope that you've learned something as well, that the experiences I've had may hopefully help you as well with your stitching. And until next time, happy stitching!